Joining me now is social entrepreneur and the CEO Teach for Nigeria, Folawe Omikunle. Good morning, and thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
Now, there has been divergent views with regards to the government's touting of reopening schools perhaps sometime soon, especially after the ban on interstate movement has been lifted. I wonder what side of the divide you are.
Thank you very much for that question. And one of the things that I was sharing recently is COVID-19 has a new meaning for me. It has a new meaning for me because I know people, I know close colleagues, relations who have been infected with the virus and who haven't been able to whether access private hospital or hospital in general, who haven't been able to be received at the isolation center, some who weren't able to get tested even, or who got tested after they had gone through the experience. So when you think about that, I think it's important for us to ask the right question here. I think it's premature to be asking whether schools should reopen or not. I think the question here should be, can children continue to learn whether our schools reopen or not, whether they are in school or whether they're at home? How can we ensure that our children continue to learn? And I think some of the concerns have been shared by your interview. Parents are truly concerned, and parents do not have the trust, one in government or in school providers, that they're going to put the procedures and measures in place to ensure that their children are safe. I think another thing is even the confidence in their own children. I was in a conversation recently with parents where they were saying you can hardly get their children to stop playing with other kids or to stop touching or reminding them to wash their hands and what have you. And so is that what they would now live with, sending their children to schools? How do they know and how would they ensure that these children are following all the measures in place? I think another thing is also even parents and work. There's some parents, for example, who their children's school was close to their workplace. There's all of these changes now. A lot of parents do not have drivers. There's social distancing happening even in the public transport. How are children going to get to school on time? What does that even mean for parents, who now have to travel like far distance, but still continue working from home? So there's all of that to consider. And then there's the facility readiness. First, when I remember when schools were shutting, one of my biggest challenge was majority of schools, when you talk of public schools, do not even have access to clean water or even access to water at all. So how are we going to ensure that, we're going to have all of this in place, ready for children to arrive? Even with the face mask that has been mandated, I went into a meeting for the first time, a physical meeting yesterday. There was no ventilation, there was no fan, there was no air conditioner. And in that room, I was sweating underneath my mask. And how are you going to ensure in some of the environments and the classrooms that we have, how are we going to ensure that the children have their face mask and the teacher who is going to be moving around, who is going to be active, has got their face mask on all through? How are we going to ensure that the children are also not taking it off because they would feel the heat? You should go into some of these schools and classrooms and really understand what it is that I'm trying to say. That's another. Hello?
Yeah, I can hear you. I was just trying to perhaps interrupt your line of thoughts for a bit to perhaps share with you some other arguments with regards to this. Some have come up said that the parents to these children actually go to work. And so if they go to work and return, go to their businesses and return, don't they also pose a risk to perhaps infecting these children that we are trying to, ensure that they are not infected if the schools are reopened? Others are also saying that the time is going for these children, and so this could affect the academic calendar for the children as well.
So, I love all that I'm hearing, but the truth is we had challenges even before COVID. We had challenges as children were out of school. We have the largest number of out of school children in the world. So we had this challenge even before COVID. And I think COVID, this situation is an opportunity for us to find the solutions. It's an opportunity for us to take this issue seriously. Post-COVID, we're going to have more children out of school for several reasons and diverse reasons. And I think that what we should be focusing on now is how do we strengthen, whether it's the local solutions, the relevant solutions to ensure that our children continue to learn, because that is the purpose here. So for example, there's some states who are leveraging television, who are leveraging radio. How are we ensuring that all children have access to a radio set, or we have constant power to ensure that even the children who have television in their homes are able to continue watching and learning? How are we ensuring that children are provided with the learning materials, with the textbooks, with the work packs, with things that they should be doing? How can we strengthen and solidify all the different measures that we've put in place to ensure that children continue to learn? I think we should really focus on that right now, not whether or not schools should reopen.
All right, Folawe Omikunle, thank you so much for speaking with us. Joining me via Skype is social entrepreneur and CEO Teach for Nigeria, Folawe Omikunle. Thank you so much for joining us on TVC Breakfast.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
All right, let's talk solutions now. There has been complaints or concerns about inadequate power supply, access to internet. But where do we begin if we are to strengthen local solutions that would ensure inclusivity, especially for those children who may not have access to all of these basic supplies that we have mentioned?
Thank you very much. And I think, to your point, I'm not sure who said it, but there was someone during the interviews that you were having who talked about stakeholders. And for me, I think they play such a big role here. I think if we didn't understand truly the partnership for education of across the world, I think now more than ever, we recognize the role of parents, we recognize the role of teachers, school heads, government officials, education managers, ed tech solution providers, and just everyone across the ecosystem, and how truly important they all are. And if we're really going to strengthen and solidify solutions, we all have to be talking about these different issues. I think for Nigeria and for the sector that I work in, which is where majority of our children work and go to school in, which is the public education space, we have to ensure that the low-tech solutions that we're adapting are strengthened. So for example, there is the radio. I think what we should be focusing on with access to radio and television is how we fully adapting these different channels to ensure that the children are really learning, to ensure that we're able to assess that the children are learning. How are we also going relevant according to the relevance of the different communities where our children live in? So providing, say, for example, work packets. How do we start to, strategically systemize these things to ensure that it's working, to ensure that it's not a gap for when schools are going to reopen? Because as we see and as we engage with this conversation, we really don't know when this COVID is going to go away. We also don't know when the vaccine is going to be found. And I think for as long as we haven't identified the vaccine, we should ensure that we just focus on strengthening the current solutions with us. And I think it's in partnership with working with community, with parents. And maybe just to share an example, there's an ingenious idea where there's this individual who said there was no power in a community. The children didn't have access to television or radio. What did he do? He went to talk to clerics in that community and said, let us use your paging system. Let us use your speakers to play lessons so that these children can continue learning. And this teacher went on providing textbooks and providing worksheets to support the learning. So I think those are some of the things that we really need to think about and think about how to solidify it.
Now, how do we also explore the possibilities of e-learning, although we already see that in place amongst certain schools? But then the cost is also a major challenge. How do we ensure a balance?
I think with e-learning as well, just as majority of the people who are using e-learning at the private schools and at children who come from privileged background. And even with some of that, a lot of them are having challenges with fully integrating it. The teachers are not, some of the teachers were not fully equipped or prepared to fully leverage the e-learning platforms. Some schools are going with it seamlessly and they're getting teaching and learning to happen. but majority of our schools haven't been able to fully integrate it. And I think, again, this is where the continuous training comes in. Before COVID-19, we struggled with continuous training. We struggled with professional development for teachers. And I think now it's not even whether or not. We have to invest in our teachers. We have to invest in our school heads and principals to fully get them to understand and to be able to make use of the different platforms that are available for learning. And I think there's also another angle to it. I mean, even with connectivity, even with, there's some of us who have 3 different service providers. There's a lot of people who have challenges with power supply. And I think when you think about e-learning and distance learning, leveraging, internet and leveraging laptops and devices, for children to use, there's all of that we have to think about. But I think, we cannot run away from ensuring that our teachers and our education managers are fully equipped to use it, are fully equipped to know how to assess, monitor, support students. And I think those are some of the things that we need to start thinking about.
All right, quickly before we let you go, Folawe, what point would you say it would be safe to ask children to return to schools?
So the minister said something during the interview, and he said that he wants to ensure that the schools are safe for children to be able to return to school. And when you talk about safety, you're talking about access to whether it's a proper healthcare facility. Right now, majority of the private hospitals are not accepting patients once you display symptoms of COVID-19. The isolation centers are full. Until we're able to ensure that all of these things are in place and are working properly, also ensuring that the community is well educated. There's still a lot of people who believe that COVID-19 is a myth, even educated people. And so there's work for us to do there. And until the vaccine has been found, we really have to be careful about the impatience of wanting to reopen schools. And I think until we have all of those things in place, we really shouldn't be reopening our schools.
Folawe Omikunle, thank you so much.